Greetings! How are you doing? I'm doing fine, thanks for asking. So this video is going to be about natal moon in Aries. The moon itself, like right now at this moment, went into Aries at about 8 o'clock this morning. So it's not about how the moon transit is going to affect you. That's a totally different subject. So if you know anything about your natal chart, you'll know what your sun sign is. Everybody knows what their sun sign is. I'm a Pisces, you're a Virgo, whatever. But the moon sign is also extremely important. In fact, all of the celestial bodies play a role in your personality to some degree. So if you want to know where your moon is, you can go to astro.com and look for the ephemeris and look under the correct century and year. And then you can scroll through and find your month and then your day. And then it should be the second column over. There's symbols. One is for the sun and the other one is for the moon, and it's a crescent, if I recall. So yeah, it's a crescent. So the crescent symbol, it's underneath that. If you don't know how to do it, I'll be happy to help you or show you. Otherwise, I'm going to get moving on. So moon in Aries is a really interesting sign. I've known quite a few people with this. I mean, I've known a lot of people with all moon signs. I've been doing this for about 22 years, so you do get to learn who you're dealing with astrologically, and you do learn a lot, not just from books, from your own experiences too, which I find to be the most gratifying way of learning about astrology. So if the moon is about your emotional security, your hidden emotions, your unconscious reactions, and often your knee-jerk responses to things, it develops similar to the second chakra. It develops very early, between the ages of, like, we'll say 2 and 7. That's just a window. And a lot of it points to how our childhood went. And if the moon is a sign that is feminine, it's not a sign, sorry. It's a planetary body that is feminine, and it moves very quickly, changes fairly often, every couple of days or so. And it's also more of a, I don't want to say nebulous, but it's not a super direct. Emotions are not logical. You can't follow them and pinpoint them and explain them. They have to be felt, and very often emotions have a lot to do with what's going on outside of us, especially when we're younger. When we start to learn how to cultivate our own emotional state, that's a different story. But if you consider the moon in a sign like Aries, which is very direct, it's ruled by Mars, it's a very masculine energy, it's fire, whereas moon is generally at home in, like for instance, its home is in Cancer, which is a water sign. It is exalted in Taurus, which is an earth sign. So earth and water and fire, not so much. So you would have to mention that the emotional state can be quite fiery, right? There's some impetuousness. There can be a great anger that swells forth whenever there's, something. It doesn't matter what incites the moon in Aries. The anger is quick, but it's also very easy to quell too. So when we deal with moon in Aries, we're talking about somebody who emotionally lies in the first sign of the zodiac, which we often associate with the Fool, like in the tarot cards. And it's young. They're emotionally young, and there's some really good aspects to that. There's the childlike qualities of being very straightforward. I like hanging around with kids because you always know where you stand with them. They either like you or they don't. They either think you're funny or you're not. And they don't like you any less or more just because you aren't funny to them or you aren't fun to them or you don't have this or that. They're just very blunt and very honest. And that's how Moon and Aries can really express themselves. So unless there's something else going on in the chart that's suppressing, like maybe Saturn hits Aries at similar degree or something like that, or there's other things going on that sort of suppress the expression of the moon, if you find somebody with moon in Aries, they will tell you exactly where you stand with them in an emotional stance. You'll either know whether they're interested in you romantically, or if you're siblings, you're going to know whether they actually, kind of like you or not, or what they don't like about you. They generally aren't going to do things for people just to be nice, which, the other side to that is childlike can also mean impetuous, thinking before, speaking before they think, and also the way some children tend to be up and down with the emotions. Fire is transformative and it moves very fast, and so they're just as quick to become passionate about something and to be really drawn to something as they are to just cut themselves off. So there's the great ability to express a lot of want and desire for something. Something that catches a moon in Aries really deeply and emotionally would be a challenging personality, somebody who isn't very submissive, somebody who has no problem speaking their truth when it's time to do so, or even when it's not time to do so. There is also a tendency for Moon in Aries to be very, very busy. And when things aren't going well emotionally and they aren't in control of their responses to life and they're constantly reacting to things, which Moon in Aries is really good at reacting and not so great at taking a little bit of space to breathe and say, okay, is this really something I need to get pissed off at, or is this something that I can just let go or let it run its course? So when Moon in Aries is really insecure and not feeling fulfilled in a lot of ways, which often gets picked up from the mother early on, and they say that because of the moon. And I feel like it also depends on where the moon is in your chart and if there's anything else going on in the chart that indicates father and mother stuff. But generally, if Moon in Aries is feeling secure, it's the type of insecurity that they picked up from their mother at some point. Sometimes it's the case where the mother couldn't give them enough attention, whether that means that the mother gave them enough attention and the personality could never be satiated. It's a totally different thing. I find that when Moon in Aries is with somebody who is a solar water sign, that they get very needy for attention very quickly. I also find that when Moon in Aries is does not have a good support system growing up, that doesn't mean they needed two parents. It just means they didn't have a support system that allowed them to express themselves and express their anger and not get yelled at for it, but also being shown how to express feelings in a way that can be calm, that they can be very volatile, and they also have a tendency to not understand how to deal with other people's emotional needs. Emotional needs to them are like a waste of time. So if you are even remotely insulted by something they just told you, it doesn't matter how you express it to them, if they haven't dealt with their own emotional needs and their own triggers, emotional triggers and responses, they aren't going to have any time for you, and they're going to act like it doesn't matter. The truth is, what generally happens is they see their own triggers and responses and their potential neediness in you, and they're sort of projecting a little bit, and they're getting frustrated because they see a reflection. And the interesting thing about Moon in Aries is that they don't often slow down enough to reflect. So unless there's other things going on astrologically, like a really pensive personality elsewhere, or a Mercury sign that is a little bit slower, also maybe the moon and Mercury make a positive connection, or it's stabilized by another planet in this case. Moon in Aries would have to be stabilized a little bit. What happens is the person goes from emotional relationship to relationship, from emotion to emotion, from the next big thing changes every week. Oh, I'm really excited about that. Oh, I really feel like this is what I'm going to do. Oh, no, I really want to do that. And there could be a lot of that going on. And a lot of this will point to any insecurities they picked up when they were kids. So obviously you can't just ask everybody, so what was your mom insecure about when you were a kid? The mom could have always been worrying that they were going to get hurt. So the Moon in Aries, as maybe, possibly, doesn't do as many adventures as they would like to. They might see other people who are also like that. They're afraid to get hurt. They're afraid to take chances. And Moon in Aries may have taken this worry from their mother as, you know what, I'm going to take all the chances I want because you're worried that I'm going to get hurt. And it's a way of rebelling. So, the kid that was in the emergency room 15 times every year, the one that wants to go skydiving, that gets the tattoo, that does this and that, because there is a natural rebel in Moon in Aries. So very often whatever the mother, or it could be the father, like I said, it depends on other things, was insecure about, the Moon in Aries will often subconsciously, generally not out, it's generally not an out thing that it's consciously rebelling, but they'll subconsciously rebel against it. So they may also look at other people that are afraid to do things and afraid of change and afraid of adventure and little healthy fears being wet blankets kind of. And the other thing that Moon and Aries can get really stuck in is kind of being in like battle stations modes. Like everything that doesn't 100% agree with them on an emotional scale, sometimes on a mental scale, they'll just fight at it. They'll fight at it. And they're really good at fighting. They're always ready to have an argument. And this, again, depends on other factors. If this person is pretty evolved and they've worked on figuring out where their emotions come from and how to use them in a way that can cultivate progress instead of, always being upset or putting other people down. If this Moon in Aries person has learned how to get over the quick outbursts, and another thing, Moon in Aries might have learned how to apologize to people. That's a big thing. How to apologize and really feel bad about their outbursts and how they may have hurt somebody else because they realize that they have emotional needs too. But they never took the time to figure it out. They never took the time because Moon in Aries is always going. When there's something not pulling them in a particular direction, they'll make stuff up to do. And very often they will make things so busy that they don't have time for anything. They don't have time to sit down because they may not be at ease with themselves. Now, if they've cultivated their ability to be at ease with themselves, they're going to be good at apologizing. They're going to be that person that encourages you to be more adventurous without being overbearing. They're going to be that person that recognizes your battle station mode, and they're able to say, you know what, you don't always have to be picking a fight. But defensiveness is huge in Moon and Aries, and really a lot of fire signs in general. But something that you can do if you are dealing with a Moon and Aries person is let them have their outbursts and do your very best to hold your emotional center in place. They learn very quickly from an emotional standpoint. And this is why, as a kid, they learned very quickly from an emotional standpoint how to deal with stress and pressure. If mom dealt with stress and pressure one way, they probably picked it up, didn't even know it. If mom was calm and always in her center and never showed anger or fear and always understood that situations could be dealt with in a rational way, maybe Moon and Aries learned that. Most people aren't like that, though, unfortunately. And they're not like that all the time because we're not robots. So the idea is cultivate your own center, and they'll revolve around it, and they will learn very quickly. If you react to their reactions, that's just more fuel to their fire, and they love it. They thrive on it. Even if other parts of their chart reject it and say, "Oh, I don't love conflict. What the fuck are you doing?" If there's a lot of Libra or Pisces or even Cancer, which tends to, go back into their shell, that Moon in Aries could be a total like black sheep in the chart and can cause like a lot of emotional distress in a personality that may not really thrive on conflict, but they don't know what to do. It's an unconscious reaction. They learned it somewhere, somehow, probably early in life. So if you're dealing with a Moon in Aries person, hold your center, hold your calm, show them that you're not going to be upset at them for being angry, but at the same time, you're not going to let them take out their anger on you. And if you hold your ground, they learn very, very quickly how to treat themselves eventually by how you ask yourself to be treated, especially if it's if you are the gender of the parent from which they learned how to deal with their anger and fear. Okay, so take that. If you are a Moon in Aries, or even just a regular Aries, and you're like, that sounds a bit like me, which it could, the motivations are different. Solar Aries people, the sun is like your third chakra. It's your ego, it's your true will, it's your psychological motivation. The moon is a little bit different. It's more of unconscious reactions. It's more of how you perceive things to be. It's how you feel secure. There's an innate creativity in the moon too. It's that spontaneous creation that happens like in the womb rather than a mental creation that happens in the mind. So if you are a Moon in Aries and you're thinking, wow, what can I do? Go back into your childhood, open it up the can of worms if you have to, figure out, look at your parents, see how they react to stress and how they react to being challenged in any way. Does any of that piss you off? Does it annoy you? If so, you probably mirror some of or all of the same qualities that they do. And again, it might not be mom or dad. Your mother figure might have been an aunt. Your father figure may have been a teacher. It all depends on who you looked up to the most and who you really found the most learning from, the unconscious learning, the behavioral learning. All is not lost. Moon in Aries can be a great companion. And I love the Aries energy, maybe because I have Mercury in Aries, maybe because I am a solar Sagittarian, but the Aries energy is refreshing. You always know what you're getting when you have the moon in Aries. Very rarely are they going to lead somebody down a line of emotional torment and then drop them off at the end and say, oh, I never meant that. That's really not going to happen. You'd have to have a whole lot of other really deceptive signs and connections in the chart. Moon in Aries is pretty clear about what they want. And although you could be childlike versus childish, right? One tends to have positive and one tends to have negative connotations. There's a great boon to being very open and having those emotions be right out on the surface, provided that you keep the emotions in a place that serves everybody, you and everybody around you. So it's great that everybody knows when you're ticked off about something and when you're really happy and when you're sad and when you feel triumphant and when you feel challenged. It's good that people can know that you're an open book, and that's a great quality to have. The difference is, are you an exploding open book that some people, really are repelled from time to time? Or are you a book that people can, they don't feel like they have to have on their kid gloves with you if they broach a certain subject, or they try to talk to you about something you did or said that may have made them uncomfortable. So really watch that defensiveness. You don't need to be defensive. It's okay if you hurt somebody else's feelings. You very likely didn't mean it. And if you did, you could just own up to it. Sometimes the truth is more refreshing than trying to convince somebody that that your intentions were different, right, than they really were. So if you have any other questions on Moon in Aries, I could give you a few celebrities that have Moon in Aries. Marlon Brando, and he was a double Aries. Trying to think. Well, one of my favorite actors, Benedict Cumberbatch, he's a Cancer with Moon in Aries, which is a really interesting square there to have. That's probably one of the ways that he can be such an effective actor, because he has access to emotions from multiple avenues, from the moon being in Cancer, and Cancer ruling body being the moon itself, and that that fire water connection can make for people who have a great emotional capacity. I'm trying to think of something else. I would like to come up with three people, but I can't think of it. So you can look it up anyways, right? So that's my Moon in Aries rant. If you have any other questions, if you would like me to go through a series of 12 videos where I go through Sun in Aries, Moon in Aries, Sun in Taurus, Moon in Aries, Sun in Gemini, Moon in Aries, and so on and so forth, we can do that. But what I'll be doing is the natal moon, every time it changes, I'll make a video. So the next one will be Moon in Taurus. So you can get prepared. Try to look up your birth information or somebody that you love's birth information and see what their moon sign is. And then you can look for that video to come up and then learn a little bit more about yourself and the people with which you surround yourself. Maybe today you learned something. Maybe you're a Moon in Aries, or somebody very close to you is, right? So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you want to get the notifications of the next videos. They're going to be every 2 or 3 days. I'm really excited about this. And if you want any horoscope or personality profile or synastry, which is relationship charts, just give me a call or an email. I do all of that. All right, so have a great day.